Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Excel Training for Beginners. This really is a foundation course, so it doesn't really assume much prior knowledge of Excel, so don't worry. It just assumes that you're happy using your computer keyboard and mouse and that you have Windows and can access Excel. So the aim of today is that we're going to introduce some basic techniques for Excel, and we're going to learn how to enter data, format data, perform simple calculations and format information. So the first thing we want to do is understand the terms used in Excel. I often say that Excel is a language and we need to learn to speak that language. And so it's useful that we all use the same terminology when we're referring to parts of Excel. So let's have a look through these definitions. So the first one is workbook, and that is the file in which you store your data. The workbook can contain more than one worksheet. So if I open Excel and create a new document, this is my workbook, and within it is a worksheet. Okay. So the worksheet is the area that we could see on the screen, and that's where we input our data and perform our calculations. We have sheet tabs that are along the bottom of the screen. So if I look here I have my tab, and I can add here a new sheet and a new sheet, and then I can navigate between the worksheets by clicking on these tabs. Okay. So each box in a worksheet is called a cell, and cells are referred to by their kind of address, their coordinates. So let's have a look here. So this cell that's selected here, I can see is in column D and is in row 6. So its address, its coordinates are D6, and I can also see that referred to here in this box. So let's look at another one. So here I have column F and row 9, and I can see here that my reference is F9. If I were to highlight a group of cells together, you can see that it's the top left cell that is referenced. Now, the cell that has the border around it is the active cell. And what that means is that if I begin to enter data, that is where the data would appear. Yeah. Okay. So from the coordinates, we've seen that the worksheet has columns that are in alphabetical order and rows that each have a numerical number. Around the worksheet, we have a grey area that is called the frame. And it's important that we learn to distinguish the frame from the cells within it. So let's just have a quick look at that. So The white areas are the cells, but around it where we see the letters A, B, C, D, E, etc. and 1, 2, 3 for the columns and rows, that section, the grey area, is called the frame. Next, we move on to the ribbon. And the ribbon is this grey area across the top, the strip across the top. So let's have a look at that. So here, this is our ribbon. Yeah. And you can see here that currently I'm on the home ribbon, but I can click between other ribbons, insert, page layout, data, etc. And these ribbons contain a lot of tools that we'll learn to use to arrange formats, create formulas, etc. So within the ribbon and within Excel generally, whenever you see a little down pointing arrow, that indicates that there's a drop down menu available. So if I click there, you'll see that that gives me options available in a drop down menu. Let's try another one here, a small menu, but still some options available. And let's try here, just a small menu. Here's some formatting options. So whenever you see a little down arrow and click on it in Excel, it will produce some sort of drop-down menu option. The other way that we access menu options in Excel is if I'm hovering nearly anywhere and right-click, a menu will pop up with various options on it. And these differ depending on the area of Excel that you click into. So my menu option here, if I right-click, might be different to the menu option that I get when I click within the frame. Okay, so that's just two types of menu options to be aware of. Sometimes when you open Excel or working in Excel, you might find the presentation like this, and you can see that all those ribbon options across the top aren't visible. So to get them back, if you just click in any of the ribbons, those options will return. Now, if I click back into my cell, it's gone again. But how I can fix my ribbon is if I click in my ribbon to restore it, I have this option here, a pin. So if I click my pin, that fixes it to the top of my Excel. So now when I'm working, it's always visible and I can easily access the tools on it. Personally, I always like to work with my home ribbon pinned and visible because that's where I most frequently access tools from. So I'll just demonstrate that once again. So now the pin symbol is not visible, but instead I can click this arrow to hide my ribbon. And now I can access it again by clicking my tab to reveal my ribbon, and now I'm going to fix it with that little pin symbol in the corner. And there we go, that's now fixed. So I have two ways to navigate around Excel. The first is that I can just use my arrow keys, and the second is that I have the scroll bars along the sides if I want to move between larger areas. So very simple, but we'll have a quick look. So here I'm moving my arrow key down, left, right, up, and you can see the active cell move around as I use those keys. And then here to the right, if I click and hold down this scroll bar, I can move down through my rows. And likewise, I can move my scroll bar across and move horizontally across my, my worksheet and my data. Okay, so let's talk about entering data. If we want to enter information in a column, we're going to type the value, hit enter, and that will populate a column of data. If we want to populate a row of data, we'll enter data in our active cell and hit the tab key to move across. And the other option, of course, is that we can use the arrow keys to move around to find where we want to enter our data. So let's just take a quick look at that. So here I am typing my number, I hit enter, and I move down. And now if I hit tab, instead of moving down a column, I'm moving across my rows. Now I'm going to use my arrows to move over here, enter some data here, enter some data here, enter some data here, enter. Now, I've talked about Excel being a language. Excel is also intelligent, and it does so many things to try and help us out and make our work A, quicker, and B, it always tries to reduce manual error for us. In this case, let's have a look at Excel using its intelligence, and it can predict data. So here I type number 1 and hit enter. Now, if I highlight that cell and then in the bottom right-hand corner, I find this little black square, and then I'm going to drag down. Let's see what happens. Okay, so Excel thinks maybe you want to be typing in a column of ones. I'll help you out. Maybe that's what we wanted, or maybe we wanted a sequence of numbers. So let's see what happens now if we enter 1 and 2. And we need to highlight them both together because that gives Excel the information that we are trying to create a sequence. So we highlight them both together. Let's find that small black cross in the bottom right-hand corner. And now we're going to drag that down. And now let's see what happens. Great, so now we gave Excel enough information for it to recognize that we wanted a sequence of numbers. So that saves us a lot of time typing them in ourselves. Let's have a look at some other data. So let's type as short for Monday. So I want to do my days of the week. What does Excel think? Now in this case, even for just Monday, I found the little black cross and I dragged down, and Excel predicted that I probably wanted to do days of the week in order. So that's really useful. And let's start with Jan, see what happens. And again, a small black cross, and I drag down, and I can see that it's producing months for me. So that's a really useful skill in Excel. If I type March on its own, let's see what it thinks. It's still recognizing it as a month. So let's have a go at this ourselves. If you go in your Excel data and do the exercises on the worksheet predictive text. So hopefully you've had a chance to have a go at those exercises. Let's just run through the results. So on the first one, I'm going to find the little black cross and drag down. And on this one, because there's only one single piece of information, it assumes that you just want to copy it. On this one, remember, the important thing is, and a common mistake made, is not to capture them both. So I must capture them both to give Excel the clue that it is a sequence I want to form. So now that I have highlighted them both together, I'm going to find the cross and drag it down, and that will produce the sequence of numbers for me. The days of the week, I have a month. I find that cross and I drag down, I get my days of the week. Now let's have a look at what happens with these dates. 1 January 2021. Let's carry on, and great, Excel has been able to assume that I wanted dates in a sequential order. Jan 21, let's drag, and it assumes that I want the months in a sequential order. Then finally, we have these two slightly more complicated references. And let's think that they might be a receipt reference, an invoice number, maybe a candidate code if it's M&E data. So let's drag this one down and see what happens. And on this one, we can see that because there is a number at the end, it has predicted that maybe these are going in sequential order. Now this one has an A on the end. Let's drag and see what happens. Okay, so in this case, it hasn't got enough of an idea about what sequence you're trying to make. It hasn't done A, B, C, D, E, etc. on the end, which is maybe what you wanted. So the predictive skill of Excel there is amazing, but it is really important, and the observation to take away from these exercises is just caution, beware. Don't assume Excel has always guessed correctly. You must just look down the list and check that the predicted sequence is correct and is what you wanted. So another way we can create data is by using copy and paste. So to do this, we just highlight the area of data that we want to copy. And you can use your mouse or use Shift and arrow keys to highlight the data. Then we press Control plus C together, and that is the copy function. And once you've done that, you know what data you've captured because there's a crackling border around it. Then we're just going to select the location we want to paste it and press Control and V to paste it. So let's look at a practical example. So here, I'm going to highlight the data I want to copy. I've used my mouse and I'm going to press Control and C together. And now I can see that crackling border around it. So that means that that is the data that is captured to copy. And now I'm going to move it over here where I want it. And I'm going to press Control and V. And I've pasted my data. So there are alternative paste options, and I want to take a look at those now. So here we have our numbers, but actually they're just simple formulas. So this one here is 1 plus 1, 2 plus 2, 3 plus 3, and I think you can guess the rest, 4 plus 4, and 5 plus 5. So I'm going to highlight that data, and I'm going to do my Control C. And now I have my crackling border, which means that I've captured that data and copied it, and it's ready to paste somewhere. So this time, instead of pressing Control V to paste it, I'm going to right click. And we know that if we right click, we get a pop-up menu of options. So I'm going to right click, and there's my pop-up menu. And here I have various paste options. The first one I'm going to look at is equivalent to Control V, and is this one here. So I select that. And now let's have a look at what we've pasted. So we've pasted everything across because the formula is still there. 2 plus 2, 3 plus 3, 4 plus 4, and 5 plus 5. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. This time, I'm going to copy my data. I'm going to access my options. And this time, I'm going to pick the option that has the 1, 2, 3. And let's see what happens this time. So this time, the formula has not been copied across, and we just have a plain 2, plain 4, 6, 8, and 10. So what that function with the little 1, 2, 3 does on the menu, let's bring it up to have a look there, is it pastes the values only. So it's not copied across the formulas, it's just pasted the result, the value, what Excel could see if you were a plain viewer and didn't know there was a formula there. The final one that I wanted to look at is more useful really with text. So let's highlight this one again, Control C, and this time I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to use this little one here, and this one transposes the data. It's taken it from a vertical to a horizontal row. I'll just show you that one more time. So Control C, and I paste it here, right click to get my menu, and I'm going to use this one here, transpose. And the only reason I'm showing you this one is that from time to time, if you start a spreadsheet and say you're putting dates down the side, or accounts down the side, and then you think, actually, it would have been better if I'd done those across the top. This is a quick way of changing your mind and without having to retype everything. So that's your 3 paste options. So in summary, they are paste, which is the Control V, and that's the automatic option, which pastes the cell contents, including any formula. You have the paste values, which pastes just the numerical values or text. And you have transpose, which converts your column into a row or your row into a column. And so the final way that we can move data around a spreadsheet is simply by dragging it. So here, if I highlight a piece of data, and this time I'm looking for the compass, so a cross with the north, south, east and west, indicating that I can move it north, south, east and west. And I click, and I can then drag that to wherever I want. So I highlight the data, I find the compass so I can move it north, south, east and west, and I grab it and I drag. I grab it with my compass and I drag, grab it and I drag. Okay, so that can also be a useful way to manage the data in your spreadsheet. So now go to exercises and have a go at the copy paste exercise. Let's run through the exercises. So the first one was using transpose. So we highlight the data, press Control C to capture it to copy. Then I'm going to click where I want the data to be represented, right click for the options, and I'm going to transpose that data. So now I have it vertically instead of horizontal. Okay, just press Escape to get rid of the crackle. Now, the next exercise, I need to copy and paste column D. So here I go. So if I copy this and I press Control C, and I'm going to use Control V. What happens? Well, I've got some very odd numbers that have come up, haven't I? So let's have a look at what's going on. So I can see that actually that minus 96 is resulting because it is the result of the formula C20 minus D20. Likewise, here we have 1 minus 4. So what's happened is that the whole formula has been pasted across. Maybe that's what we wanted. Maybe we just wanted the values. So let's try again, and we'll copy this data, press Control C, and this time I right click to access my menu options, and I'm going to pick values, and this time you can see that I've created basically a repeat of the values only. So now we're moving on to some simple calculations. And the first thing we're going to look at is the quick sum. And how this works is if we highlight a group of numbers that we want to add up, we can see a very quick result in the quick sum bar, which is at the bottom right-hand corner of our Excel sheet. So in this example, we've highlighted these items and we see 3 results. We see the average, which is the average of the selected cells. We see the count, and the count indicates how many cells there are that had data in them, or essentially how many items of data there are. And the third one is our sum. It's added the numbers up. So let's just have a quick look at that here. So here's our example. We're going to highlight what we want to add up. And here we see the results. And this can be very useful if you're working on a spreadsheet or want to do a quick check and see what total you're currently at, or if you have lots of data in a meeting and somebody asks you for something, you can very quickly highlight it and find a quick sum. So that's the quick sum bar. The next thing we'll look at is Autosum, because whilst quick sum is useful, normally when we're doing Excel sheets, we want totals to be displayed. So let's go back to our example here. And in this case, let's say we want our total permanently displayed. So I'm going to enter the active cell. I'm going to press equals, and then I'm simply going to use my Autosum function here, and I'm going to double click. And you can see what's happened. Excel again has used its intelligence and its predictive nature to highlight what it thinks you want to add up. And in this case, it's got it exactly right. That's exactly what we wanted to add up. So we hit enter and we have our Autosum there on our sheet. I want us to look at something to be aware of when using Autosum. So I've slightly changed my data here to show the number of items of stationery that we used in 2019 and 2020, and now I want to total them. So the same as before, in my active cell where I want my total to appear, I press equals, and then I'm going to move to my Autosum and I'm going to double click. And look what's happened this time. Excel has used its intelligence and its predictive nature, and it's seen a list of numbers above that it thinks it wants to total. However, in this case, 2019, we actually don't want that in the total. That was just the year that was at the top of the column. So it's not quite right. So there's two ways we can amend it. We can re-highlight just the area that we want and press enter. And now we have the total that we were looking for. Or the other thing that we could have done is we could have just manually adjusted the formula. So here it's saying, I'm going to total up C4 to C11, but actually I want it to start at C5. So I can just click in the formula, change that to C5, and you can now see it's capturing the right numbers for the total that we want. And now to copy that formula across to 2020, we could use our Control-C and Control-V, or we can take our little black cross and drag across in this case, and we have the total for 2020 as well. So in our previous sums, we've been able to do them easily because all the numbers that we wanted to add up have been together. But of course, that's not always the case. And so let's have a look at how to create a formula when the numbers are not all together. And this essentially is like going back to school and doing our sums. So in the example below, we have a list of beneficiaries by country. But this query here asks us to total the beneficiaries in West Africa only. And because they're not together, we need to create a formula. So the 5 steps that we followed are here. So on the worksheet, I've clicked into the cell where I want the answer to appear. Then I've clicked on the cells where I want to take the data from, and I've just used a plus sign to add them up. The formula then appears, as you can see, in the cell where I'm working, but also in the formula bar here. It's really good to get used to using the formula bar to review and amend formulas, because the more complicated formulas become, the easier it is to access them there. So let's have a look at that in the real example in Excel. So I'll press escape and start again. So I'm going to press my equal sign. And then the first country I want in West Africa is Guinea-Bissau. And then I press a plus. Then I click my Ghana entry. And I'm going to add Cameroon and finally Burkina Faso. And then if I hit enter, I have my subtotal. A final thing to note on formulas is that when we're doing additions, we use the plus sign, subtractions, we use the minus sign, and in Excel for multiplication, we use the asterisk sign, and for division, we use the slash. So let's just have a quick look at that. So if I do an equals, and I do 20, and I want to multiply, I do an asterisk times 10, hit enter, 200. And now if I want to take my 200 and divide it, put in my slash by 10, hit enter. Okay, so just a simple asterisk and a division is a slash. In this example here, we can see that the sum is now not working and there's something called a reference error. So why has that happened? Well, if you look in the formula bar, just focus in a little there, you can see that instead of a cell reference, there's now a reference error, which means that the sum doesn't work. And the reason that's happened is because a piece of data in this formula has been deleted. So for example, if I were to delete Ghana, if we have a look now, there's a reference error, and now that sum can't add up because the row and the reference that the sum was looking at is gone. Now, if you ever do this, you can revert quickly and undo the work that you've done by using this undo button. And so now my formula and my results are restored. So now go and have a go at the exercises on the sheet called Sum Exercise. So if you've had a go at that, we'll just run through the answers. So exercise 1, highlight the numbers in the table and use the quick sum panel to see the average, count and sum totals. Okay, so I'm going to highlight here all the numbers in the table that I want to add up, and I can see here my quick sum. So my total is 7867. If I just wanted to see for 1 year, I could just highlight these. If I wanted to see by country, I could just highlight a row. Now I want to fix my totals on the screen, so I'm going to use my Autosum. So to do that, I click into the cell where I want the result to show. I'm going to press my equal sign, and now I'm going to double click on my Autosum. Now in this case, because I have the year 2020 at the top, Excel has tried to take it into the formula, but I don't want to add it in. So I'm just going to amend it here by redefining the area that I do want to sum. And now I'm going to hit enter. Now I have my total showing. And now to copy my formula across, I am going to use a dragging technique and find my small black cross. I'm going to drag that across, and there I have my totals year by year. Now I want to add in my totals country by country. So let's start with Haiti. I'm going to put an equal sign in the cell where I want my total to show. And now I'm going to double click on my sum and hit enter. And again, I'm going to find the small black cross and drag down. And there we go. I have all the totals in my table. Now I have a subtotal here, total beneficiaries in West Africa only. So now I'm going to do the equal sign again in the cell where I want my formula and my result to show. And so I'm going to select Cameroon plus Burkina Faso and hit enter. And then again, find my cross and I'm going to drag across. And there I've completed exercise 1, 2, and 3. Exercise 4 asked us to delete one of the rows and see the impact on the total in 2020 and 2019. So if I copy this row here and I right click and delete it, now that's interesting, isn't it? Because my 2020 sum has stayed intact and there's still a result, but my 2019 one shows a reference error. So let's have a look at what's happened. So in my 2020 total, you can see that the sum was summing everything between B27 and B30. Yeah, so it's still doing that. So there's still a result. Whereas this one, now because this one was adding each individual row and each individual cell, when that cell has gone, there is no reference for Excel to look to. And so it's created a reference error. So let's undo that. And then let's have a look. So the original formula there was B27 through to B31. And I know that because of the use of this colon sign in the middle. Whereas this sum was each individual cell added. And so when I delete a row, this one is still summing through, so it works, whereas this one produces a reference error. Okay, and I'll undo that again. Okay, so in that example, you saw me deleting a row. So let's have a look now at amending our spreadsheets, because often we'll have started doing our data and then we think actually we want to put in a new piece of information here, a new piece of information there. And so we have options to insert rows and columns, and also options to delete them, and options to hide them. So let's have a look at all of these functions. So on the top of our screen, on the home ribbon, we have a button called Insert, and that's where we'll find our option to insert rows and columns. And note that Excel will insert the row or column where the active cell is. Let's have a look at that on Excel. So if I highlight here, column C, and I go up to Insert, I have an option here to insert sheet columns, and you can see that it shifted it to where the active cells were. Likewise on rows, if I highlight, and notice I'm highlighting from within the frame, and now I go up to Insert, and I've got an option to insert sheet rows, and there I've inserted a row. The other thing we looked at previously, but just a reminder here, is that if you want to add a worksheet, you can use this plus sign here. You can see there that my new sheet has come up. I'll just name it so I know where it is. Okay. So I'll just undo these and we'll do that once more. So I'm highlighting from within the frame. And now I can use my insert here to insert a column. And here I'm highlighting from within the frame, the row. And I can use my insert rows here. Okay, and there is an alternate because, as we know, we always get these pop-up menus. So again, if I wanted to insert here, I could right-click, and now I can see a pop-up menu has appeared, and I can insert, and it inserts a column there, and I right-click and I insert. And in fact, in my day-to-day work, that's how I insert columns and rows, because that's a lot more quick and it's more instinctive than to keep going over to the insert. But while you're learning, this insert tool here can be useful to help remember a way to put in rows and columns. So and just as I added, and just as I inserted columns and rows, I can also delete them in the same manner. So here, if I click within my frame and I right click, delete, and that column's gone. Here, if I highlight from within the frame and I right click, delete, and the row has gone. Okay. Now, the other option we have is hiding rows and columns. To illustrate this, let's have a look at this example. So here we have a table of stationery items in stock. We can see that pens in January 1, February 1, but the total is 3. Likewise for all of the items. As we look down the columns, it looks like 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 7. So does this table make sense? No, it doesn't. And what's happened here is that there are hidden rows, and those hidden rows must contain the data that's in those formulas. And the way to know that there is data hidden is to look at the sequential order of your columns and your rows. So if I look at my columns here, A, B, C, there is no D. So that column must be hidden. And if I go down my rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10, well, clearly there are some hidden rows here. So here is the example in Excel, and I can see that my column D is missing. And here, looking down my rows, I can see that columns 5, 6, and 7 are missing. So to retrieve those hidden columns, if I highlight on both sides of the missing columns and I right click, and you can see here it gives me this option, unhide. And now it makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? January, February, March equals 3. And here in the frame, I highlight on either side, I right click, I unhide, and there we go, my table makes a lot more sense. Now, I've shown you that we can add worksheets with this button here. We can also delete worksheets. So, for example, if I add a new worksheet here, I'm going to call it new, and then I decide, actually, I don't need it, I'm going to right click and I have the option to delete my worksheet. Just like with rows and columns. I can insert, delete, and hide. I can also hide my worksheet. So if I hover over the tab and I right click and I press hide, my worksheet that was called hidden data has now disappeared. Now, hiding worksheets comes with a warning. It can be very dangerous because how do I even know I have a hidden worksheet in a workbook? And the answer is really I don't, unless I right click on a different tab, and here I have an option unhide. And when I press it, you see that I have an option to unhide a sheet called hidden data, which was this sheet that I hid. Now, you might think, but what's the purpose of that? What's the use of it? Well, there are rare occasions when it might be useful. Say, for example, if you've done a lot of workings or you have a lot of notes and you want to retain them, but the user doesn't necessarily need to be looking through them all. You might just want to hide those sheets. The other thing is it's important to be aware of this issue of hidden worksheets, because from time to time, you may receive a donor reporting template. And sometimes that has formulas in it which rely on items that are in sheets that the donor has hidden. Maybe it's because the donor doesn't want you to mess about with some formulas they've created. But sometimes if you click into a cell and you see a reference to a worksheet that you can't find, it is going to be a hidden worksheet. And then the only way you'd be able to find it is by right-clicking and pressing unhide. Now here, I can't unhide because there are no hidden worksheets in my document. But let me illustrate by hiding a few more again. So I'll right-click, hide. I'm going to right-click and hide, right-click and hide, right-click and hide. So now I've hidden lots of my worksheets. And I'm going to go here, press unhide, and here I have all the options to restore the sheets that I want to see again. Okay, so recommended, avoid using it where possible, but worthwhile being aware of that because you may receive documents that have these hidden worksheets and it may help you understand what's going on. So now let's take a look at formatting data in Excel. The thing I want to emphasize about formatting is that first and foremost, what is important in Excel is the accuracy of your data. But formatting can be a useful way of getting your message across and presenting your data well. However, it can also be a big time waster if you spend too much time formatting and not enough time focusing on accuracy. So get the balance right. Accuracy first, formatting second. The other thing with formatting is if you add in too many colours and tables, and the other thing to be aware of is too many colours and too much formatting can actually use up memory and make your Excel workbook far bigger in bytes than it needs to be. So don't go crazy with your formatting colours. But let's have a look at some of the most useful tools, and they're found on the Home tab. And so we'll just run through some of the most kind of commonly used. So here we have our fonts. So I can select a different font. What I would say is, you know, we're professionals, use a professional font. This one I don't think is very professional. I tend to be very boring and always stick with Calibri, but Arial, Times New Roman, Futura, you know, don't use a crazy font for a serious piece of work, okay? And then we can adjust the size of our font, which, you know, we might want a heading bigger than the body of writing. We can also change the size of our fonts using these up and down buttons. Next, we have got our simple bold, our italics, and our underline. Next here we have, see our drop down, we have options for formatting tables. So here I'm going to highlight my data, and in this case I'm going to apply borders so that now I have a grid. And just to finish it off, let's say I'm going to put a thick border around the outside. So there, I've formatted very quickly a little table of data. Here I have my fill option, so maybe I want to put my titles in yellow to make them stand out. And perhaps for some reason I want to highlight this number because I have a query about it. Perhaps I could put that in red. So I also have these alignment buttons here. So for example, let's make this table a bit bigger. So at the moment, height is in my bottom left-hand corner, but I could move it up to the center, down, and I can put it to the left, to the center, or to the right. And obviously you don't need to play around with those too much, but sometimes you want to make sure numbers are aligned to the right and text to the left. That's where they can be useful. Now, one of the most useful items here is wrap text. Now, how this would happen is if I have text that is far too long for the cell in which it wants to appear, then I can use wrap text. So let's have a look at that example here. So I'll put my total beneficiaries title, whoops, sorry, I'll put my total beneficiaries title here, okay? What has happened is I can't actually read that now because it's too long and my width of my column is here and my text is here. So I can press this button, wrap text, and now what that does is it puts it over several lines so that I can read the title. And that is very useful to make sure that you can really clearly see what is contained in each column. The final one that you can have a little play with is, you know, if you didn't have room in your column, you can look at things like rotating your text so that it is displayed on a diagonal, or if I go like this, you see, press OK. It's not what I meant to do, is it? A final thing in formatting here is that depending on the denomination of currency in your country, you might be working in huge numbers. And sometimes for a reader, it can be hard to look at these large numbers because you can't tell if they're in thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. So something that can be quite useful is your comma indicator here. to make your numbers easier to read. And you can use these keys here to move your decimal places up and down. So to round, you can just use your decimal place number to round. So I've set up some formatting items for you. So go and have a play around with these and do the exercises so that you're comfortable with using some of those formatting options. Okay, so you've had a go at those formatting exercises. Just a couple that I just wanted to run through. I'll just do a quick reminder on formatting the table. So I'm going to highlight the table data that I want to format. And then in this example, I've been asked to put borders around the table to make it easier to read. So I could just choose an outside border, look like that. Or maybe I want to now also put an outline around this bit, or perhaps I wanted to put borders all around, and maybe to make it kind of stand out, maybe I wanted to put some thick border around it. So just a few options there. And then just important to look at this one on the merge cells. So what the merge cells does is when you highlight them all and squish them together using the merge cell here, you can see you get a warning message that says it will only keep the upper left value. So that means that in this case here, if I merge them, only the 23 remains and all the other data is lost. So that's why, one of the reasons why merging cells always comes with a warning from me, because you can lose data. And also, as we progress through these courses and learn to set up tables and use table data, merge cells can cause huge problems. So I would encourage you to really reduce the risk by not really using merge cells unless you feel it's absolutely critical to your presentation. But if you can find a way to not use it, then do so. So here's my document that I'm going to save for the first time. So I'm going to do File, Save As. I'm going to save this in my file, AAA Saved Examples. And because I'm saving it for the first time, I need to give it a name. So let's call it example 1, Excel Beginners. Okay. Now, say I now want to work on it the next month and I want it to be replicated, but example 2, I can also do File, Save As, AAA Saved Examples happens to be where I'm saving mine. And now I could save it as example 2 and start a new workbook. Okay. Now, Excel by default saves your work every 10 minutes. But sometimes we are working in countries and in situations where we might not have an adequate electricity supply, we might have power cuts, and we might have, old equipment. So there's a greater risk of losing our data if we haven't saved work. So I just wanted to show you a quick tip where you can set up Excel to save more frequently if you're worried that your battery is going to go or there's going to be a power cut or something. And so in Excel, if you go to File, Options, and then within your options, you have Save, and here you have an option to set your autosave at a more frequent pace. So if you've never accessed this before and you have a look, you'll probably find it's at 10 minutes because that's the default, but you might want to just reduce that saving time to 5, maybe even 3 minutes if your battery's about to go and you're at a meeting or something. So that's just a little tip to make sure that you can hold on to your data. I'm going to set mine at 5. And finally, backing up data. This way of saving our data, we have just been saving those documents to our computers. And so that means that if your computer is lost or stolen or corrupted, you've lost your data. So first and foremost, you should be following your organization's protocol for saving the document to a place where it's backed up. Maybe you have a shared server, maybe you have a policy on saving it to USB keys. But if you don't, just a couple of things to consider are you could set up a Gmail account, and that comes with 15 megabytes of cloud storage for free so that you have a little bit of cloud space to store any documents that you don't want to lose and that you need backing up. And of course, the other option, which is not the tried and tested way, but as an absolute kind of backup, is to attach it to an email and send it to yourself, because then it can be retrieved from your email. But first and foremost, follow your organization's policy. But if you're worried that you're only backing up documents to your computer and you need a second location for them, just think about the options. So that's everything for today, but we have got a final consolidation exercise to combine all the skills that we've learned today. So go and have a go at that, and then we'll just wrap up by going through a suggested answer for it. So let's run through the suggested answer. This is the exercise we were given. So let's follow these step by step. So exercise 1, in column C, create a forecast for February 21 for the number of beneficiaries reached. Add 30 more beneficiaries to each number in each row. Okay, so first of all, I need column C to be February. So I'm going to drag that across, and Excel has predicted that I wanted February. That's great. Now I want to add 30 beneficiaries to each of these rows. So I'm going to do equals B7 here, which is January, plus 30, and I'm going to press enter. And now I'm going to find the black cross and drag that down. And now I've added in those beneficiaries. Now, the other thing is, these are actuals, but I note that that asked me for a forecast. So I'll make it clear that that's my forecast. Now, the next thing I had was in column D, create a forecast for March. Multiply the number of beneficiaries in February by 2. Okay, so I'm going to drag this across again. Great, I have March. This is also a forecast, so I'm going to write that in again. And I want to multiply the February beneficiaries by 2, which means I need a formula. So I'm going to press equals. I'm going to click into C7 and use the asterisk as my multiplication sign times 2. And I hit enter, and then I'm going to drag those down. Great. Insert a new row below community education for mask up. Add a forecast of 25 beneficiaries in February and 67 in March. Okay, so I need to insert a row. So I'm going to highlight below community education, and I'm going to right click to get my pop-up menu, and I'm going to press insert, and there I have a new row. And this project is going to be called Mask Up, and well, there was 0 in January 21 because it looks like it's only started in February for 25 and then 67 in March. So in column E, create a total column for each project. Okay, so now I want a total in column E, and I want to add up those numbers. So I'm going to use my Autosum. I'm going to press an equal sign where I want my result to be, and then I'm going to double click on my sum. I'll review it. Yep, that's the 3 numbers I want. I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to find my little black cross and drag that formula down. So here I go. Great. So that's number 4 done. Number 5, in the bottom row of the table, add totals to show the total number of beneficiaries in each month. So I need a new total here. I'm going to call this total beneficiaries. And now I'm going to insert my formula here. I can use an Autosum again. I'm going to press equals, double click. I'm going to review what's captured in that crackling border, and that's correct. So I'm going to press enter. Now I'm going to find my little cross, and I'm going to drag that formula across. Great, so now I have a completed table. Now, number 6, merge and center the words number of beneficiaries reached across the 3 months and the total. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to take these 4 cells here, and I'm going to merge that so that the title reads across the top. Put a border around the box. Okay, well, I'm going to use this light border. There we go. Number 7, do some formatting as you like to make the final document look neat and easy to read. Okay, so I think I want these 2 to look a bit more like actual, so I'm going to make them bold and put them in the center. I think I also want my total to be bold, and I'm going to move it over to the left because I think that looks nicer sitting over those numbers. And these ones are in the center, and these ones are all over the place. So I'll tell you what, let's put them all in the center. Well, now I want that in the center too, I think. Let's put that there. And yeah, I'm already quite happy with that. Now, check all items in the table are clearly labelled and give the table a title. Well, I just noticed I've missed an S up there. Is everything clearly labelled? Well, yes, I know these are my project. You know what I might do? I might just make those bold as well. I can clearly see my months. I know that these are actuals and these are forecasts. That's very important. I know the difference. And finally, table A. I haven't got an overall title, have I? So let's say table A is number of beneficiaries by project Jan to March 2021. And then, you know, that's all the information I need. Now I think anybody can understand the table as it's presented. So I'm happy that that's the final result. So I hope you've picked up a few skills today, and moving on to the next course, we will consolidate what we've learned here and move up to the next step in Excel.